He's helped develop and worked with governments and the wealthiest people, the billionaires, in Singapore, in Hong Kong, in his country, Malaysia, in China, in Japan, that we've talked about, with his connection to the highest companies and folks that are in Japan, and over here. His clients are Bloomberg, where he's not only working with them, but he's on air with them regularly, internationally, as a regular guest in this subject of what we call performance sciences. He has created the Performance Science Institute that creates a kind of decision reformation training, how to make better decisions all the time, with the notion that we get rid of this religious connotation to 8,000 years of known, proven aspects of, for instance, if we're together in a space and it's toxic and it's like a dentist office, we don't want to come early and leave late, and we don't work with each other as well. If we have some plants and some waterfalls and it's laid out differently, we love our space, it's sacred, and we do things with each other better. We have less conflict, we have more where we can actually increase our performance. CEOs of Hewlett-Packard, Microsoft, and he has to work for Steve Ballmer. So these are the biggest companies on the planet. And these corporations that he works with, and it includes a list that I could spend 20 minutes going down. So you don't get to Hewlett-Packard and Microsoft and Volvo and international, I mean, all over the world. He has 25 American companies that are all Fortune 50s that are retaining him at $100,000 for the CEO to take management at the top and change their space and the mechanisms by which they use cues, meaning you're a water creature. You make decisions. Your decisions are a bunch of firings. Is that the synapse path where it breaches? Is that your decision? Is your decision before that with the lightning storm that's going on in your brain? Is that your decision? Are there other forces? We're a big ball sitting in time and space. Einstein says we bend it. We bend time and space by the nature of the gravity of the earth. We're rolling along it, right? And does that big ball have any effect on this water creature with its energy fields, its gravitational fields, its magnetic fields? If there's a science that tells us that where the ball is and how it relates to other balls like the moon and the sun can affect fields of energy that make it better for you to make a decision today and less better if you're angry tomorrow, and we have some idea that we could influence decision making. Joey is one of the grand masters of this technology, revered all over the world for it. And he has, as people I know are watching from all over his audience in many countries, you're hanging to get another piece of his latest technology and what he does as head of Performance Science Institute. The Sci Institute is creating more change in corporate boardrooms and more production, and his philosophy is it doesn't matter if you believe it, because it works and you can just test it and prove it. But he is very individual. His whole thing is the wealthiest people in the world pay me, and I have this huge success at age 34 that people only dream about, because in my culture, the companies use this normally, and the wealthy pay me. But he said, I've chosen to come out and also spend part of my time in year, I can't do it often, where people that are rising up, who need it a lot more than the wealthy, can use it to be able to affect an easier journey. My whole thing is to reduce resistance, to reduce flow dynamics, to get the kind of congruency and alignments that make it easier in the decision processing, and to help you see that there are areas that we know that we are putting before the biggest companies about what this year looks like and what's happening, that you should take on in your considerations. For instance, I have already predicted what happened in Japan. And he's never missed at all. And it's a science. It is not a woo-woo kind of thing. For us, we're getting into, and he's very considerate of religious persuasions. He doesn't want to be in any context anything but complimenting religious thought. He is a bended knee guy, humble servant, believing that we're all children of God and that we have to be in surrender to divine purpose and will, but there's nothing wrong with discovering more of what God had in mind in the first place, that if we are reverent and humble, we get more knowledge about how to go to the moon or how to make a better decision under God's laws and God's rules. And so he's such one of us, and he's a cooperationalist. He believes in the cooperation revolution. He wouldn't be here if he didn't. He wants to bring cooperation to the world. It's what he's been doing with governments and nations and leaders of companies. He's been changing them from this brutal competitive nightmare and using sciences of decision to create alignment, congruency, faster accelerations, better results, and on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. This is going to affect what you do next month, the month after, the month after. It's new for a lot of you. Some of you are exposed to these sciences and principles, but not at these levels, not at these corporate 100. If the 100 Fortune companies are hiring and buying, this is the only person they buy in the field. He's the number one voice in the field. He is the number one authority and expert in the field. And he's been 7 weeks going from corporate to corporate to corporate all over the world, literally moving from Japan to China to Singapore to the EU, back to the U.S., San Francisco, 2 days of training just now. I was just with the executives. I spoke there. He had me speak at his conference. I left here, went up and spoke, came back. He just finished his 2-day and came here. And he's going finally back home to his beloved Malaysia. And he knows that there's almost 20 countries in the room here. So he's anxious to teach to all of you. And he's aware that we're broadcasting to 140 countries live. And we want to thank you in New York and in Australia and in all the Asian markets and EU markets and island nations that are watching us, and the South American markets and African countries. We just want to thank you, and especially our Canadian friends who are touching us to the north and our Mexican friends touching us to the south. Thank you for tuning in and watching us. We love you. Miss all of you club presidents that couldn't make it, but we are you're up with us, of course, and I hope you're enjoying the new programs that we're putting forth for you. And we want you to come together now, and, you know, it's from 8,000 miles away, with putting the back of the little knapsack of the friends, the faces, the children, the families of the largest companies in the world that he coaches in Tokyo aside back there so he can teach you with a full heart. He's 8,000 miles from home, and he is the number one person in the world. Would you stand to welcome Joey Yap and let him feel our warmth? Joey Yap, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Bernie. Thank you.